Okay, so hello everyone. It's 11 a.m. here in Sweden, and we will get started. Welcome to this webinar on the theme Introduction to Subscription Management for B2B Companies. My name is Monica, and I am a marketing coordinator here at Younium, and I will be your host for today. With us today is Niclas Lilja, our CEO and founder of Younium, and Björn Schlingman, our head of product. This webinar is 40 minutes and we will have 2 polls. You are probably used to this already. I also want to inform you that this webinar is being recorded and will be sent out to you later this week. We will also go through the presentations. Of course, you can ask your questions in the chat, but we will take them at the end. So without any further ado, I'll leave you with Niclas. Niclas, please, stage is yours.
Thank you, Monica. Just to give you an introduction of what we will go through today, a very short agenda. We'll start off with looking into simple versus advanced subscription management. We'll also dig deeper into subscription management for business to business and how that is quite different. And then we'll go through some benefits, not only for financials, but also for sales and operations. And towards then, we'll wrap up with a customer story and Q&A. So let's start. I said before, simple versus advanced subscription. Let's start with a simple one then, or perhaps we should say standardized, because they are typically very standardized, aimed at high velocity sales and often is sold purely online. So you have the customer signing up online, usually with quite limited options, like selecting a plan or just monthly or annual billing. And then they continue by providing personal details and payment information, also often the credit card details. I guess we've all been there. All done, the service is ready to start to be used. And of course, if this sort of business model covers all use cases, that's great. But many companies really face a different reality. They might have a business that requires direct sales with potential buyers, which also includes negotiated deals. It could be that in the customer base, there are already a wide variety of plans and pricing that needs to be managed. Not everything is like this new, shiny, perfect plan that we're going further with. But it could also be, selling through partners. It could also be a more complex service with modules, add-ons, extensions, just a bit more advanced or complex. So I think, as you can see, the reality for most companies is far from the standardized idea of the simple subscription. So then let's look at a quick test to evaluate complexity that needs to be managed in a subscription business. First off, we have the top indicator to the left. All customers have the same price and terms, versus to the right, all customers have unique prices and terms. But it could also be, how often do the subscription change? Never or quite frequent. Looking at the buyer also, is it the same user that is also the buyer? So sort of a B2C scenario, even though it could be in a B2B world, where to the right, we more have like, oh, it's a company that is buying. It could be a group, it could be a framework deal, or it could be, multiple users, and the buyer is quite distinct from those users. And also at the bottom, do we have this one service? Or do we really have perhaps, prior generations of the service, or we could have different product lines, etc. So all of these sort of leads to complexity. So unless we have all indicators really far to the left on the scales, there is at least some complexity in the business. And I should also say that it's really enough with one of these indicators being to the right to introduce enough complexity to really think about how to deal with subscriptions. To sum this up, complex or advanced subscription management is a different creature to manage than the simpler, more highly standardized subscriptions. And it has its own set of processes, tools, and best practices. So we often use this sort of to position different businesses. The x-axis goes from B2C on the left to B2B on the right. And of course, in the middle could be B2 anyone. And then at the bottom, we see, simple standardized subscriptions like, the $9.99 online standardized service versus at the top, we're looking at more advanced subscriptions. Really today, there are not that many complex B2C subscriptions, but if you remember phone subscriptions back in the days, they were quite complex. But in the other three quadrants, we typically have some companies that can sort of signify each quadrant. And of course, for this, we also have, the we can do it all kind of vendors. There are always the SAPs, the Oracles running everywhere, as long as it's big enough amount on the table. But there are also solutions covering a lot of the standardized subscriptions, often a lot of B2C, but also, sufficient for B to small b, the scenario where you have a business buying in a consumer-like scenario. And then we have niched B2B solutions covering the more complex enterprise group deals to support and also, supporting the online channels as well, but rarely touching the B2C side. So let's do a quick poll.
Yes, so time for a poll. Do you agree that your company handles advanced customer subscriptions? I will launch the poll so you can answer. There you go. We'll give you some seconds and then we share the results. Let's see. Yes, 100%.
Quite anonymous. That's great. A good start to this webinar. So going then further, what does this really mean for businesses then? Well, one thing, and likely the most crucial thing, is that we need to have full control over the core process, the core machinery, in order to be efficient and ready for scaling. So let's take a look at what that is with subscriptions. We'll actually start with just a traditional sales order to the left, like how it used to be done and what most systems support. We had, the linear flow of an order, you do a confirmation, you fulfill or you ship the goods, and then you have the perfect information for doing invoicing and finally receiving payment. And the transaction, sort of the relationship is over. This was dealt with by CRM systems where you would do, the deals, and then you would take it further on in the ERP or financial system. Very linear. And of course, looking at new business in subscriptions, starting off from a white paper, it's sort of the same. But quite soon, when we have done that first deal, we've signed the contract, we get going, we have a lot to manage. How to do around renewals, how to deal with upgrade downgrades. Is that in the original contract, how more users should be dealt with? It could also be like milestones. It could be more dynamic billing where you bill how much is the customer using of something. It could be sent SMS, or it could be storage or whatever. And then also just looking at the subscriptions, we could have many subscriptions to one customers for different products. It could also be that, we have a platform fee for annual billing and other fees for quarterly billing. So all of this becomes fairly complex straight away. And we will at the same time have more events happening. It could be upsell, downsells, it could be renewals. and we need to do multiple invoices, receive multiple payments, and we need to deal with our revenue recognition in a very structured fashion. So how do we deal with this? Well, our belief is that you really need a subscription hub that sits in the middle and communicates with the CRM or whatever tool you have for your key account managers, your other people working with new sales. It could also be like a partner portal or whatever. We also need to communicate with the ERP or financial backend as well, of course, because everything must eventually come down as general ledger transactions. But we also might need to have a connection with our own service. Like, okay, so if a customer adds on something to their subscription, that should be in the subscription, it should be invoiced, it should be triggering a feature toggle in our service, for instance. So making this very structured and aligned with one source of truth really gives a good foundation, and that is the core process. But then, of course, that is just the start, because then we, based on this information, we will also want to manage refunds. It could be credit invoices. We might want to calculate commissions on our sales channels. We want to provision the service. Maybe we also want to add on self-service to our customers so they can make some changes. Then we really need to have that data in order. But it could also be index renewal uplifts. And of course, it could also be what we typically expect, how to do reporting, forecasting, what if analysis. So typically, when we see this as a hub, we can use it to ensure end-to-end support for the customer journey from business events. In this example, in the CRM system, could also be other channels, and also have correct and detailed financial bookkeeping. But we can also provide the opportunity to connect, the services that are offered to the customers. It also could be used to connect with customer success platforms and other types of systems. So this is really the foundation to manage your subscription business and the core mechanics. So we'll now continue to walk you through some benefits that are achieved with the subscription management platform. And really the start is have one source of truth. If we have multiple spreadsheets, we have some information in the CRM, some information in the financial system, it's really, really difficult to both gain control, but also to do automation. But three areas that can really be supported by this good foundation is growth. How can we add on new channels for growth? It could be adding on an online sales channel. It could be adding on how can partners resell our service? How can we allow self-service, as we talked about before? This requires really good understanding of the data and automation. But it could also be operations. We talked about provisioning, but it could also be used for customer communication. How do we inform the customer about upcoming renewals? How do we confirm that they added on a number of users, etc.? How can we tie them closer to us? And then also finance. Financial processes related to subscription business are quite cumbersome because you never really get rid of anything. You just keep growing the data. And there are often manual processes with large or ever expanding complicated spreadsheets. So we see a lot of companies making their initial business case in this area only. But of course, I think it's important to know that while starting off with financial processes, it could also be used for really leveraging growth and operations as well. And I will shortly dive a bit deeper into these 3 areas.
Yes, but first, poll number 2. How do you handle your customer subscriptions today? Let's see here. So is it ERP, financial systems, CRM, Excel, or our own built in-house? So just a couple seconds for you to answer. Yes. Okay. 18. So it's 44% ERP financial, 11% CRM, 22 Excel, 22% our own system built in-house. I will share the results. So mostly it's ERP financial system.
Yeah, and also quite a big distribution as well, like between different options. And I think there are reasons for starting off in all of these ways. But along the way, I also think there are often reasons to see the need for a hub and then really connect these systems as well. We'll move on and talk a bit about how we can cover multiple sales channels. I mean, the early subscription management platforms was almost 100% focused on online sales and self-service, you know, the business to consumer scenario online, where you would publish very standardized offerings. And the customers, of course, they did sign up and they could manage their subscriptions online. And this is, of course, still very important and in many cases something to strive for. But now when subscriptions has also taken over the B2B market, CRM and partner sales are 2 channels that also need subscription management support. And the typical scenarios for CRM sales are enterprise solutions with combinations of products and services that end up in a somewhat custom contract. There could be some negotiation process and the quotes are iterated with the customer and it doesn't come out exactly as what you anticipated in your price list. But also, I mean, B2B companies quite frequently also uses partner channels where reseller sells the subscription. But still, the final contract also needs to be managed by the vendor because you are providing the service. You have, you know, a part of the delivery, even though you have a reseller, right? So here there are often quite fragmented processes with quoting, billing, and, you know, kickback or commission management, and that can also be addressed by a subscription management platform. And looking then at digging a bit deeper into the quote to cash process and what benefits you can get from an integrated platform. So we're starting off with quotes. Here it is possible to have a structured process that is designed for subscriptions, meaning that, you know, already in the sales phase, we actually talk about subscriptions with terms, with billing frequencies, etc. And that also provides a sales manager or, you know, a VP of sales to actually have instant overview, not only of a amount, but really, you know, what is the business in total? Are we on the right contract terms, etc. But along the way, the quotes automatically converts into active subscriptions when they are accepted. And with final contract data, you get real-time KPIs and bookings without the hassle of spreadsheets. And since subscriptions often really are moving target, you also need to have good tracking on all changes, you know, the renewals, the upsells, the downsells, and, you know, maybe even cancellations. But having that data, we can then from the subscription invoices will be automatically generated and sent out to customers. And with a subscription management platform, you can really utilize the flexible and dynamic pricing models, not only be stuck with a flat fee, but really introduce those elements that can contribute to your growth on your existing customer base, but without building very complex manual processes. And finally, the invoices gets paid. And depending on your geography, you would most likely need to provide a mix of available payment methods. It could be invoicing in some markets, but it could be other payment methods in other markets. Either way, with an integrated system, the payment of an invoice is directly linked to the subscription line item it's based upon, and that is tied to, you know, the contract, and you get that whole audit trail of, you know, what led to what. We already touched a bit on, you know, the benefits for operations, but going back to, once again, having the single truth of subscription data in a structured system where all changes are immediately entered, you can get benefits in your operations as well. It's quite common to tie, you know, the permissions in your platform or feature toggles to the subscription terms. And this means that you really have full control over what customers should have access to in terms of products, services, features. You know, what are the terms? When do the subscription end? And is the customer's account in good standing in terms of payments? Also, you can provide extra value to the customer by providing in-app information about subscriptions, as well as automating notifications. It could be in-app or emails about upcoming renewals, price adjustments, or similar. Financials, as we said from the start, is often the first area when looking for a business case for subscription management. And this is not strange, because these processes are often manual and fragmented, and quite a disconnect often between the invoices and the subscriptions. And also, in the end, in the finance team, everything has to be sorted out. That's what it typically is like. By introducing subscription management, you also get real-time forecasting on the things that we already do know about the future, like cash flow, recurring revenue. Also, when you have variable charges where you can either estimate future usage or just base it on a, you know, a latest value as a best guess for the future. Revenue recognition is also an area where there are a lot of spreadsheets out there. We see more and more interest and requirements in flexible revenue recognition, both in terms of models and proration. And a key benefit within integrated system is also that you have a connection between the detailed revenue recognition line all the way back to the subscription line item that was maybe sold many years ago. And there are, of course, also the automation possibilities when the subscriptions are managed in a structured way, where all details are entered and collected in the same place. Invoices can be generated and sent out automatically. Here is also a possibility to integrate with traditional ERP or finance system for the accounts receivable and reconciliation process. So really benefits in financials, but also sales and also operations. So we're getting towards the end of the webinar, and I would like to just do a brief summary of the topics. And I think the first foremost, you know, really select a platform that matches your business. Remember the difference between, you know, B2C, B to small b versus more advanced B2B. Also, really, we can't stress this enough. One source of truth is a must if you want to continue develop and growing your business the best way possible. Also look to, you know, at possibilities to expand sales channels. I guess we all want, you know, more sales, but there are so many ways in how we can do that and meet our customers. Take away manual steps and really find ways to automate provisioning based on the contract data. That also allows for other things like self-service, etc. And then finally, streamline your financial operations and gain control and real-time subscriptions and revenue data. Thank you. And then also we talked about a customer case. So here we have one. Formpipe is a company in the enterprise content management category. They are a public company with operations in 10 legal entities. They serve both public and private sector, and they've been around for some time, meaning that they both have new business as well as a legacy business to manage. And before Younium, they kept enormous spreadsheets to track and control their bookings. Of course, new business, but also changes on existing contracts causes these spreadsheets to really explode in size. And in addition, they saw increasing requirements on providing subscription KPIs to their management and external stakeholders. They have now fully eliminated these spreadsheets, but use Younium's data model for their reporting instead. And this has led to less manual work, faster reporting, and the ability to perform a more detailed analysis on the business, as well as a reduced risk for manual errors. So with this story, we've come towards the end of the webinar, and I'll gladly hand back to you, Monica.
Yes, thank you, Niclas. So just quick about us. Younium was founded in Sweden, and we have grown quite fast and are now present in Amsterdam, Stockholm, and Malmö, working with companies from all around. You can see some of our clients down below here. If you have any questions or thoughts, please contact us. We really love hearing from you. And you can do even more research also on this in our knowledge page or follow us on LinkedIn. And now I will not leave you waiting more. It's time for Q&As. So if you have some questions, just start typing in the chat. Let's see. Björn, are you ready?
I'm here, yes. Hello.
Yeah. So what kind of connectors do you have integrations to?
Okay, yeah, that's a common question. It's standard connectors is both to the CRM side. So there we have some major players, of course, like Salesforce and HubSpot and Microsoft in that area. And a lot of requirements is also for connectors on the financial side. And here we have a little bit more of our regional players as well. So we have some global systems like NetSuite or Microsoft Dynamics, but here we also see local systems, like for example, in the Netherlands, we have Exact, and in Sweden, we have Fortnox, and in Norway, Power Office, and so on. I think you can see the full list on our website.
Yes, it is true. Do you have any customers doing hardware as a service with your system?
We have a couple. It's almost always in combination with a subscription software service. For example, we have customers that does a subscription of software or SaaS service, but it's like AR goggles, for example. I know can also be others. We have a few of those examples.
Okay, so how many customers or subscriptions do you need to have in order to benefit from a subscription management solution?
This is interesting. I mean, Niclas talked a lot about when it comes to the complexity of subscriptions and not where everything is not the same from customers to customers. If you would have a very standardized offering, I think you can have quite a few subscriptions and handle it manually or tweak it into another platform. But when you come to complex subscriptions, it can get overwhelming already at, for example, 100 subscriptions if it's really complex type and a lot of activities on the subscriptions, change orders, upsells, downsells, and so on. But I mean, we have customers that starts already when they have 20, 30 subscriptions, but I mean, it's more common maybe when you're above 100, for example.
So here is a follow-up question to the hardware as a service question. if you have customers doing hardware as a service in combination with software, is there any big difference? And what should you think of when implementing that compared to just SaaS?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when you talk about hardware, if you have requirements regarding warehouse management of the hardware, you know, shipping their things and things like that, normally you'll have other requirements that not necessarily is part of the subscription platform. So I would say looking into an integration to the customer's ERP system in some way is probably there. But I think it's a little bit more discussion needed to nail that down. But that can be one thing, of course.
All right. How is Younium's pricing model?
Yeah, I can discuss that. It's based upon a couple of different parameters. Try to obviously align the price with the value our customers get from the platform. And so it's based on the number of legal entities that are, you know, used for billing in the platform, and not the and it's the ARR, so the recurring revenue, including any usage charges that is processed. So that's how it's based.
And how fast can one go live after buying Younium?
We have customers with a single legal entity in a single country, for example, going live in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. For of course a multinational organization with a lot of different legal entities in different countries, it takes longer time. I think the average is 2 to 3 months across the whole customer base.
Yes. Andreas Blomqvist asked, do you see any problem integrating invoicing to a factoring company? Today we're using a virtual printer sending our invoices to the factory company.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Not really. I mean, depending a little bit on how the full scenario. But for example, I know we have customers doing this today, either directly from Younium or through actually the customer's ERP systems and they're out to the factoring company. Sometimes it's only, you know, the factoring company is just a different legal entity receiving the invoice. Then it's really simple. You just set another legal entity as invoice receiver on the subscription. But I have to look at the specifics on that, I think.
Yes, I can answer this question. The recording of this webinar will be available. And yes, we will send it out during this week. Let's see if I have any other questions. Why should one choose Younium instead of your competitors? What are you best at? That's a good question.
Big and a good question. And I think it's our focus on the B2B scenarios. I think that's key. That's what we try to do. We don't try to solve this for everyone. So I think that is, if I should say one thing, it's the focus on the B2B scenarios where, you know, not everything is standardized and you have a million subscriptions of exactly the same kind.
Yes. So we have a couple minutes left. So if you want to ask more questions, we'll still be here. I don't have any more at the moment. So, yes. How much help do you get to set up everything and suggestions on the price models?
Yeah, I mean, our onboarding team, the customer success team, they obviously have a lot of experience from all other customers they have implemented and gone live with, and all our customers are really SaaS or software companies. So obviously there's a lot of experience that are relevant that they have use for. So there's quite a lot of help setting it up, also tools for migration, because if I go back to the previous question, how long time does it take to implement this? Depends a lot, of course, how much and how well structured the legacy data are, because you have subscriptions from before and they need to get into the platform. So the customer success team helps out quite a lot with tools and experience on how to migrate that, for example. And also a lot of our customers, when moving into a platform like this, oversee the pricing models and the offerings they have, because now with the system support, you can, you know, maybe have a more flexible and advanced pricing models taking into, for example, usage charges. So that's of course also something that the customer success team helps out with in the implementation phase. So it's not it's an onboarding project led by customer success specialists, and you are being supported until, of course, go live, and of course also afterwards.
Yes. Do you have any trial period or something similar so you can test Younium?
Yes, quite often as part of the selection process, sales process, our customers trial Younium. So contact Younium through the website or any other channel, and normally the sales representative can set up a trial if needed.
Yes, that was some really good questions actually. See if you have anything else. Otherwise, we have a really good knowledge page where you can take your time and download ebooks and read on the topic, or get into other stuff, more KPIs, metrics, things like that. So yeah, let's round this up. I think if you don't have any questions. So yep, this is it for us today. Thank you very, very much for joining, and I hope